In your experience, would you say there's such a thing as too much involvement from the parent, especially when it comes to private school, where a parent feels, I need value for my money, okay? If I'm paying such and such an amount, this child better get an A. So now how do you navigate such parents?
Yeah. I think there's a concept called helicopter parenting.
Yes.
Where parents now, in the name of you need to really look after your kids, they are hardly allowing their kids to breathe or to be innovative, to be creative. Everything is planned for them. And I can tell you from an education point of view, it used to be quite, what would I say? It's like, trust me, I can do this.
Yes. Hello and welcome to the Millionaire Mind Show. My name is Turife. Joining us today we have Florence Wanyoike.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time for us and joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
For those who do not know you, please introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, well, I'm really happy to be here. First, my name is Florence Wanyoike, as you have said, and I have been in the education sector. First, I served as a teacher for many years, and then I got into entrepreneurship. I started a school together with a group of friends, and so I'm both an educator and an entrepreneur, if you like to call it that way. I am married. I am married to a gentleman called Nick Wanyoike. I have 3 children, 3 adult children, and I'm also a grandmother.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Okay, that's an impressive portfolio. Now, I was doing my research on you, and one of the things that stood out for me is that you used to be a high school teacher.
Right.
So now, how did that transition from high school to you now having your own school?
Wow, that's, it was a process. It goes back to just figuring out what is it that I would like to do for a career. That's how it started. And I ended up in education. And so when I joined the school, I graduated and I joined the school, I loved kids. And I really enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed interacting, especially with teenagers. I saw how they are so impressionable. And as years progressed, I realized that beyond just teaching them subjects and getting them ready for exams, that I could possibly pursue an opportunity where I could influence them a bit more in terms of shaping what the curriculum looks like, in terms of helping them be exposed to different opportunities. And that's how my interest in beginning a school began. Yeah.
Awesome. And you have pointed out that teenagers are very impressionable people.
True.
And in your line of work, I'm thinking the goal is to just shape a sensible human being at the end of the day. But before we get into that, what's the one thing that has stood out? Your teaching experience, the one thing that has stood out about students, whether years back and currently, what's the one thing about students that doesn't change regardless of time?
Wow. I think for me, there could be a number of things.
Yeah.
But I think for me, one is that they desire to be validated. The whole sense of self-image is so important, and self-esteem. And oftentimes, when we think about teenagers, we just see them as young minds who need to be told what to do. But it's a period where they're trying to figure out, who am I, identity issues, and also, am I an adult, am I a child? So that time is a time when adults should trust them. They should encourage them to develop relationships in such a way that they can explore who they are and as a preparation for later life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so relationships is a very important one for young adults. Yeah.
Okay, so now tell us about Potterhouse School.
Potterhouse. The year was 2002 when we opened the doors to the public. But the actual thinking of the school went back as far as 1995. And was
before I was born.
Really, yes, many years back.
Yeah.
That's why my grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a period where the country was going through a lot of change. I think that was a time when 844 was being introduced, and there were a lot of changes. And though I was teaching in a school at that time, there were areas and opportunities that became evident. And so together with friends, we began to say, well, you know, is there anything we can do in education? Some of these friends were educators, but others were those who are just primarily concerned about children, about how we are raising children as parents. And now for me as an educator, I saw myself in a very strategic position where I could both understand the needs, academic needs, but also the needs for children to be, the word is molded, character building. And that began now a process of, are there opportunities for starting a school? Of course, it was a very huge, seemed like a very huge step to take, because a school is an awfully big venture in terms of capital investment. But there was a dimension to it where all of us were faith people, and we saw this as an opportunity to believe in God, that it's a good thing, and let's do it.
Yes.
So that's how we began.
Okay. Yeah. And what would you say is the philosophy behind the school? What is the intention? What would you like to say, this is our motto, this is who we are, and this is what we do?
Excellent. Like I said before, when we started the school, we saw some gaps. And one of the areas that we felt very, very convinced about is that, yes, academic pursuit is important, but there is also an important need to build values in children. And so we were looking towards having an education that trains kids, that instructs them, but also transforms them. So character was very, very central, in the sense that the curriculum is easy to teach, it's spoken for. But to train a child in such a way that they want to be excellent in character was something that was very key for us. So our motto in our school, if you go to our website, our motto is molding learners and laying a foundation for a life of excellence and impact. Because we believe that education prepares kids to live a good life, and really that's what we want. Not just to be employers or employees, but also to be people who are contributing to society, who feel that they are fulfilled in doing what they want to do. Their gifts, they're not just being forced to do a job because that is how they earn money, but because they're also enjoying what they're doing.
Okay, you mentioned that starting out, it was a very huge financial venture and an investment for all of you involved. And you have been functioning, that's how many years, 19, 20?
Well, it's actually, we celebrated 20 years
of
existence last year. Yeah.
So it's not an easy task. You can't take that for granted.
No.
You know, it takes a lot of hard work and commitment for this dream to still be alive to date and for years to come. But what are the challenges that you've encountered so far? What would you say about the Kenyan system, especially of education, that is challenging to you now? And apart from that, what other challenges have you encountered?
Okay, I think from the beginning, like we said, money, capital was a huge, huge one. Being a teacher, My husband works with an organization called the Navigators that is involved in disciple making ministry, Christian-based organization. I was a teacher. I was also a mother. So to trust that we could get access to funding was the first challenge. But because, like you asked the question, what is behind our school? Because we believe that this was more than just a business. It was more that there's an opportunity and we can meet a need. And so we went out to actually talk to people and tell them about the need and were able to raise money, capital. Then the other challenge was just doing business in our country. As you know, it's not easy. The licensing, like I can tell you, it took us like 5 years before we finally got the registration for the school, although we were allowed to operate, but now to be registered with the ministry, it took that long. And so it required perseverance, it required just patience, it required getting a lot of help, let alone even building a brand, because a school is not like a shop that you just open and you sell. People need to really believe in you. Can they trust you with their children? And it helped that I've been a teacher. Actually, it really did help, because people could say, well, we know her, she's taught our kids, and therefore there was a sense in which that made it easier. However, the marketing and being patient, the other challenge was just also recruiting the right kind of teachers, because our vision was Christian-based. We did want to set up a Christian school, and we were ready to say, well, this is a Christian school, and we're not apologetic about it. Then that meant that you need to get teachers who are aligned
with your vision.
And that wasn't always easy. Yeah.
Awesome. And it has taken incredible sacrifice on your end, you know, building this school, trying to make money out of it. This is a business show, so we're going to talk about the money. So public school is different, you know, it's accessible to everyone. Everyone can, you know, get the education there, but there are things that are missing there. And I believe in your school, which is a private school, there are things you're better able to provide, and there are things that are more accessible to your students or people who are part of Potterhouse. So now, do you ever feel the need, or how do I say this? How do you now make it accessible to those who may want to be a part of Potterhouse, but for financial reasons, they're like, we could never afford this? Have you, do you have things like scholarship programs, or how are you able to balance the two so that it's just not exclusive to people who can afford us?
Well, that's a good question, because when we were starting this Potterhouse, there was this gap between private education. You know, in this country there are different classes of education. There's the public education, the basic national education, and then there is the mid-level. There's the mid-level education, and then there's what you call high-end international. So we saw that there was a place for parents who needed the kind of education that gives their kids scope to pursue, you know, extracurricular activities, which certain schools didn't necessarily do. And yet those kind of schools were in the top range. So for us, we said, well, what if we really look at how do we provide a quality education that provides a broad curriculum, but it's affordable. So we did our research, and we found that we could fit in the typical middle-class private education, and therefore give access to this clientele who may not be able to access the so-called top range international.
Yeah.
And so our approach was, let's make it reasonable. But one of the very critical ones at that time was, let's use our local staff, because, you know, we do have talent in this country.
Yes.
We do have, you know, if you train young people, young teachers, mold them, they will do a good job. And that way then we didn't have to look for expatriates, as was the
case with international schools. Yeah.
So of course, you know, when you look for that kind of clientele, then obviously everything goes up.
True.
So we found ourselves really tapping a particular market that I would say were the majority of our market in Nairobi.
Yes.
And many of them recognized that we were fairly affordable for the kind of education we were offering.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that because we were not there purely for profit making, we were very, very open to working with parents who would support us. And there many supported us, you know, even just marketing the school, participating in some of our activities. Like I remember there was a time we were doing a musical and many parents came and they were helping with the kids. So there was a community that we built.
Yes.
And that created trust. And even to this day, if you go to Potterhouse, one of the things that really stands out is very, very community relationships. Teachers are very passionate. And so within that there was room to negotiate. We do offer scholarships. And we also offer opportunities for kids who may not to a big extent, but kids who may not be able to afford, we do discounts that to support them.
True. And speaking of parental involvement, in your experience, would you say there's such a thing as too much involvement from the parent, especially when it comes to private school, where a parent feels, I need value for my money, okay? If I'm paying such and such an amount, this child better get an A. So now how do you navigate such parents?
Yeah, let me just tell you that besides just being an entrepreneur, I'm also involved in mentoring by virtue of the fact that I'm a Christian. So invariably I have had, with my husband, we've had to counsel young couples and help them in parenting and so on.
Yes.
And one of the things we've noticed, Turi, is I think there's a concept called helicopter parenting.
Yes.
Where parents now, in the name of you need to really look after your kids, they are hardly allowing their kids to breathe or to be innovative, to be creative. Everything is planned for them. And I can tell you from an education point of view, it used to be quite, what would I say? It's like, trust me, I can do this.
Yes.
So what we have done, or what we committed to do, is to have as many activities as possible, and I think most private schools do this, whether it's sports day, parents teachers day. We have an open door policy where parents come and we allow them to talk, and we allow them to be involved with their kids,
to see what's happening.
but at the same time, because we tell them that, you know, there's a sense in which you need to, we are very open with them. You need to allow your child to be. And you know what happens is that when children love a school, they will say, Mommy, don't come today. Please, Mommy, I'm fine.
Yes.
So, but it's still a challenge because the society that we live in, you do need to know what's going on with your children.
You have to be hands-on.
And that balance is one that is it's work that needs to just keep happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the times we're in, technology plays a huge role, especially when it comes to how children receive information, how they communicate with their peers. So now, over time, how have you been able to just ensure that this technology actually works well for the children? I think it's actually a responsibility, partly a responsibility to the schools.
Yeah.
You know, how do you tell them about the things that are happening in the real world? Because growing up, I think, you know, in school we're only taught subjects, you know, do this, do this, do this. But the really important things, like look out for grooming on the internet, even not just on social platforms, even the games you're playing, look out for the characters and the players you're interacting with, because they could reach out to you in such a way. Are there such systems that you've, you know, come up with your school to just, beyond education, what else do you offer?
Yeah, you know, Turi, I should tell you that the challenge in today's world is to influence people's thinking.
True.
And children the same. And so when we began Potterhouse, we said, well, what is the foundation that we want to lay our school? In the Bible, Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, teach a child in the way they should go, and when they are grown, they won't depart from it. So laying a very clear basis to a child, this is what God wants. You know, in the Bible, we know that we are made in the image of God, and children as well. So these children have a mind, they have a heart, they can think, and they're not just, you know, robots that we put information. And so when that starts from a very early age, and helping them to see where the truth is, because we are living in a world where now truth has become so vague, you know, fake truth has become part of us. And so lay that foundation by teaching them, by helping them to understand there's wrong and there's right, trust them to make decisions, and that becomes very helpful when it comes to technology, because how do you control?
You simply cannot.
It's just you know, my grandchildren, the mother is very particular about how much time they spent
on screens.
And I really admire her because she's very consistent. But still, you know, when they come to my house, it's like, can we watch? And it's so easy because they sit in a corner there and they're so quiet. And
nothing is happening. You can do your thing.
You're just doing your thing. Then you realize, hey, are you, you know? So again, it's like, what are you watching? And why are you watching? So what is the reason? Where are you going? And I think that is the way that we're really going to help kids to understand technology is helpful. But it's not everything.
True.
You still have to teach kids how to use it. But it's also related to that character that we talked about at the beginning, and for the kids to understand. But also then, of course, this is where now a parent has to be present and help them, but not just say no. Tell them why.
Exactly.
Show them the cause and consequence.
True.
One of the challenges we witnessed in school is the whole area of drugs. I mean, we used to say we're a Christian school.
This would never happen.
And then it happened. And it was like, so how do you deal with this? Even for us, it was like, so how do you deal? This child needs help. And parental involvement becomes extremely important.
True.
Because then you're saying, okay, how do we help this child? And I think even in the area of technology, we'll have to be very, very interactive between home and school. Being clear that the discipline standards are consistent.
True.
Because sometimes you find you may have a set of instructions and at home
it's
they're
different.
not. So it's both for the benefit of the school and the parents to ensure that there is that support, so that whether it is technology, whether it is which friends to go, you know, all those things are in agreement, and you're working together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about progress. How would you compare Potterhouse starting out and where it is right now?
You know how I describe it, Turi? It's like, it's just a blessing, because Potterhouse, we started from zero. We bought land and put up a school, and through that, as God worked, there was a school in the neighborhood whose the owners we knew, and had felt that they needed to move on. They had run that school for 10 years. It was a kindergarten, and they said, "You guys are starting a school. Could we
merge?"
Yeah.
Or bring.
Could we, you know, we're tired. We're tired, you know. So we said, really? So that was the first miracle. We ended up having 40 kids, because these parents, you know, it's not always easy when a school closes down to start looking for
another.
So they introduced us, and so then we just took over, and we even had some of their teachers, and we started with that group, and then we just began to grow. The area where we were required the kind of curriculum that we were offering. So we found that parents really liked the convenience of a school in the neighborhood,
with
which is in Runda.
Yeah.
It was safe. Some of the kids would even ride bikes home those days. And it really gave us the advantage of growing, but not without challenges, because there were some who would say, you don't have facilities. We didn't start on 10 acres. We just started on an acre.
Slowly expanding.
Yeah, and we slowly expanded. So we've seen, you know, we've since been able to get some land, and so right now we are on 4 acres. The kids can play, but as we speak, our numbers have grown to the point where we've been able to set up our second campus. So it's in process. So it's been amazing to see how, I think I would say, God has favored, but also I've had some really wonderful people in terms of teachers. Their passion, their commitment, they loved the vision that we were about helping children be good, godly citizens. And that was exciting for them.
Yeah.
So like some of the teachers have been there since the school started.
Wow, that's over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we wind up, where do you see Potterhouse in the future? You've already mentioned opening up a second campus, but apart from that, is there more, or what's the vision?
Okay. Well, let me just say that the need for values in this country is greater than even when we began.
True.
And education, I'm seeing that there's need to transform, or to change our mindset about education. It's not just about, I get a job, I get a certificate, which is a good idea. I get a job, which is not bad, and then my life is sorted.
True.
You know that that's not happening today. So it just seems like we need to think about education in a very 360-degree. Are we preparing the right kind of citizens who are prepared to be resilient, prepared to see themselves as making a contribution to the nation, prepared to see themselves as being innovative, because innovation is big, and also even being part of a community. And that kind of education is needed in this country. So I see that Potterhouse has learned some, because most people, when they're looking for a Christian school or a value-based school, they will come to Potterhouse. But I believe that there's more to learn in terms of how do we work with parents so that these children pursue their passion, but at the same time, they are part of the bigger community. And they are clear on what is true. They will not compromise. They are clear also on what is beautiful, because we live in a beautiful world. It's just that we've messed it up. God created a beautiful world for us to enjoy and to explore, like we are told in Genesis. But of course, sin has marred that, and so now we're in the business of correcting that. So Potterhouse, if we can create many more schools, or try to capture what it is that are important, the things that I've mentioned, and promote it. So like for me personally, what I'm doing, I believe that to have the kind of education that we envisage that develops the whole student, central to that is a teacher. And naturally, you will not get a teacher who is ready and aligned to what you want.
True.
So it's important that we think about, as Potterhouse, think about the kind of teachers we are training. How can we help our teachers? And that's something that's really close to my heart, that I will do. I believe that teachers in this country in general are not taken their value as seriously as they are. And like we've seen, they shape the heart of the nation, the next generation. So for me, I believe that Potterhouse, lessons that we have learned in setting up this school and the importance of the teachers, we can take it and help teachers see their job as not just, I don't have anything else, but it's such a strategic, important part of shaping lives. And therefore we can celebrate our teachers by paying them more, training them, expanding their knowledge, and seeing that they are really contributing. So I would like to do that in setting up a training program that works with schools, so that teachers don't just go to class and back, but they can also have opportunities to say, hey, this is what I'm dreaming, these are my professional goals, how can I improve? Because in these days, we talk about 21st century schools, 21st century learners,
not the
21st
teachers.
century teaching. But are you training the are you helping them? So this is close to my heart. And I believe that as Potterhouse continues to grow, whether it's setting up other schools, that this would be a center where others can come and learn.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was such a wholesome conversation. Thank you so much for indulging us. That was so powerful. As in, I didn't expect this coming into the conversation, but thank you for being such an impactful person for this generation.
Thank you.
We are so grateful. As always, if you want to contribute to the conversation, the number is 0770729366. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you're taking your children to Potterhouse. That's where they should be, you know. We'll see you next week. My name is Turife.